That's the one thing about our audience. They always want a new guy to break through the glass ceiling.
All you have to do is just be real.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. I am the jabroni beating, pie eating, trailblazing, eyebrow raising, talking is done, you're out of your class, no sleep till Brooklyn, The Rock whips your ass.
Woo! I wish you and King would quit talking.
Now, once upon a time in professional wrestling, it used to matter what the fans thought. Once upon a time, we decided who would be on our TV show, dictated by what a man could do in that ring. And then something happened. Suddenly, people started shoving things down our throat that we didn't want to watch. Now let's have a survey by a show of hands. Who wants to take back professional wrestling?
Hashtag stand up for wrestling. That's the message of Drew Galloway.
Welcome to Around the Ring, episode 14 for today, Monday, March 16th, 2015. I am your host, Dave Brown. Thank you for joining us. You can listen to Around the Ring every week on the Spark Radio Network at thesparkradionetwork.com/Around the Ring OK. You can also listen to us on K98talk.com and on the Shoot Wrestling Network at shootwrestlingnetwork.weebly.com. One of the absolute coolest places on the internet where you can hear a plethora of excellent pro wrestling podcasts. I highly suggest checking it out. You can also follow us on our homepage, and you can listen to all of our episodes there. It is aroundtheringok.wordpress.com. And yeah, you can check us out there. You can also follow us on Twitter at aroundtheringok. Or give us a like on the Facebook, where apparently no one likes us. It's facebook.com/aroundtheringok. So, hey, this week we are going to talk about Drew Galloway standing up for professional wrestling, the first ever cage match in Lucha Underground, and the match I'm most looking forward to at WrestleMania this year. Plus, we'll get into a few random things about this past week's television shows in wrestling. You know, your Raw, SmackDown, NXT, Impact, which amazingly I actually watched part of. And then we're going to end things talking about WatchMojo.com's top 10 wrestling controversies list. Something I actually just found this morning. It's pretty interesting. I have the audio. I think I probably will play the whole thing at the end of the show. It's about a 15-minute audio, but it's definitely worth listening to. So we'll probably give that a go. Well, let's just jump right into it. So, as I mentioned a moment ago, I actually did watch a little bit of TNA Impact Wrestling this week, something I normally don't do. But last night I was honestly bored and should have been doing homework, and I wasn't, and waiting to go pick up my daughter from a movie. And so I decided, well, here, let's see what's happening on Impact. So I put it on, and there was a pretty good match between Bobby Roode and Eric Young, both of whom I like a lot. Last man standing match, but pretty predictable match. But it wasn't bad. The thing that really stood out to me, though, was Drew Galloway, the former Drew McIntyre. And Mr. Galloway, since leaving the WWE, since having been fired, has done what a lot of people have done after leaving WWE, and has pursued life in the independent wrestling realm, and has actually been pretty successful doing so. And he's also signed a contract with TNA. Now, at this point, from everything I can tell, TNA is not an exclusive deal anymore. If you work for TNA, you can still work for all sorts of other people. Except, I don't know if Ring of Honor is the only exception, because there's not a whole lot of cross-pollination between Ring of Honor and TNA, but if you're in TNA, you can also hit up tons of the indies, and you do see that a lot. And Drew Galloway is one of these guys doing this. He's been very active over in Europe since leaving WWE, and has recently signed to TNA. And last week, he came out and cut a real scathing promo about this current situation in wrestling, and tied it into what's going on in TNA with the Beatdown Clan, and did that again this week, and that's actually the clip we opened up the show with. A really, really good promo, and the thing about it is, the only downside to this is the fact they're tying it into MVP and the Beatdown Clan, which one is an awful name for a faction. But what it really is, it's a scathing promo against the WWE and against Vince McMahon. And he hits the nail on the head. And he's starting this whole big hashtag stand up for wrestling movement. Or when you look at his actual Twitter page, it just says hashtag stand up. But really it's a stand up for wrestling and for wrestling fans standing up against the things that are getting shoved down their throat that they're sick of seeing. And I think it's really cool. And, admittedly, my experience with Galloway when he was in WWE as part of 3MB, I thought he was a joke. But then again, 3MB was one of the biggest jokes ever. I mean, these guys had almost a never-ending feud with Los Matadores, and it almost just seemed like, well, they needed something to fill up Superstars with, and it was awful. But Drew Galloway is actually pretty darn good in the ring. He's charismatic. He had this crowd eating out of his hands. He starts the promo in the ring and ends up going into the crowd and talking them up, getting them really revved up. He eventually had a match against MVP that ended in a screw finish. But it was the promo was fantastic, and I think it really strikes a chord with what is going on in wrestling today and the sad state of affairs. And the truly messed up thing about everything going on in wrestling is, the business is in a bit of a downslide, with the exception of the fact that there are some independents that are doing well. But there's overall better talent, I think, now than there has been in quite possibly ever. You've got guys who have the ability that would go circles around some of the greats, some of the legends, and seeing their careers get stifled the way they are has been really sad. So this stand-up, this thing he's doing, this promo he cut, just really hits the nail on the head on all these subjects and all of these points, and it's great. But its biggest problem is it shouldn't have been toward the Beatdown Clan. It should have just been him coming out and cutting these scathing promos about the wrestling business and saying he's here to take back wrestling for wrestling fans and to just start fighting everybody. I think that would have worked out much better. But as we all know, TNA has very serious creative issues and has for a very long time. They've got great talent. They've got a hell of a roster. I mean, even as depleted as it is, you think about the talent that they have on there, and they should be doing so much better. But that's the thing. You really look at, as I mentioned before, the talent across the board is better than it's probably ever been. And I mean, you've got tons of guys at the caliber of in-ring work of, a Bret Hart or an Eddie Guerrero. Tons of guys in that same league. So it's funny that the industry is doing so poorly in a time when they've never had so much talent. But this promo he did and this whole hashtag stand up for wrestling movement he's doing, it's fascinating. I really hope it catches on, because he hit the nail on the head. The biggest problem is he's doing it in TNA. Had Drew Galloway showed up at Lucha Underground and done this, it would be on fire. It would be all over the place. Had he shown up in Ring of Honor and done this, New Japan, well, might not have caught on in New Japan as much, but a number of other indies, it would have just caught on and, been all over the place. But it's in TNA, and no one honestly gives a flying crap about TNA anymore. And that part's sad. But maybe this is what TNA needs to get some more eyes on the product and to get some momentum, because Lord knows it needs it. Let's see. Other things going on this week. We had the first ever cage match in Lucha Underground. And this was a match between Johnny Mundo and King Cuerno. It was a really good match. That's the thing. So far, everything in Lucha Underground's been really good. And Johnny Mundo's a hell of a talent. King Cuerno's this newer guy. I think he's probably been wrestling like a lot of these guys in AAA. And it was just a hell of a match, and it ended with a great spot. Johnny Mundo doing this crazy flip twisting jump off the top of the cage and getting the pin, and it was probably the end of their feud, which is kind of sad because these guys have had great matches, but it was a hell of an end. And it was nice to see Lucha Underground bring in a cage match, and slowly but surely they're introducing these gimmick matches that other promotions have used a lot over the years, and it's working. Now, the interesting thing with this setup, though, is the cage itself, the way it was attached to the ring, was so close to the ropes, it really cut movement off in a lot of ways. It was a real different way of having a cage around a ring. There's so many different ways cages have been set on rings. Traditionally, they connect right at the edge of the apron, or right at the outside of the apron, giving the wrestlers the apron to walk on and room in between the rope and the cage, and the traditional space in which to climb the ring ropes and everything to the top turnbuckle. But not in this case. They were attached. Instead of being attached on the outside of the ring post, they were attached on the inside of the ring post, which means when you look at the ring corner and you've got your turnbuckle, and there's the actual turnbuckle itself, which is if you Google it, you can see pictures of it, but it's kind of a lead thing. Not sure exactly how long they are, but you're cutting off a good probably 6-8 inches at least, I'm thinking, of space that the wrestlers normally have to work with, and it was just really interesting seeing that. It's sometimes it's a little differences in the rings, in the turnbuckle pads, and the ropes, and the setups that different places have that I find kind of fascinating. But the setup did make for a different kind of cage match, and that was a lot of fun. There was no blood, which is fine with me, but it was brutal. Lots of big throws into the cage itself. These two guys are two top talents. They're, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago when I did my fantasy draft for an organization, I would pick both of those guys to go into a new organization to start out. Or if I was running WWE, they'd be two of my picks. But it was it was something neat. It was a lot of fun, and Matt Stryker and Vampiro did a great job calling the match, and they do actually a really good job every week. So yeah, that was the cage match on Lucha Underground, and holy crap, I'm really getting through all these topics quick this week. Might be a short episode. Sorry about that, or maybe you'll be thankful, because listening to me drone on is kind of awful at times, but I digress. Before we get kind of into the shows this week, the one other thing, kind of main topic I wanted to talk about was coming into WrestleMania, and the match I'm looking the most forward to, which is the Intercontinental Championship ladder match. This is a pretty lackluster card overall. I think the tag team match is going to be really good because Cesaro and Tyson Kidd are awesome. The Divas match has the potential to not suck. Nikki Bella's gotten a lot better over the last year or so in the ring. Paige is great. AJ Lee is great. So that has the potential to not suck. I really don't care about the Rusev John Cena match. I'll do a full predictions next week of the whole card, but I really don't care about the U.S. title match. I do like the fact that it's considered one of the main events. I am looking forward to the Sting Triple H match, and I like the build-up to that, but we'll get to that in a minute. But the thing I'm really looking forward to is the ladder match, because in this match, we have Bad News Barrett defending against Dolph Ziggler, Dean Ambrose, Luke Harper, R-Truth, Stardust, and Daniel Bryan. Now, I'm not a big R-Truth fan, even though his hijinks lately have been hilarious. I'm not a big Stardust fan, even though I think Cody Rhodes is fantastic in the ring. But I'm really looking forward to this. I mean, there are some of my favorites in here. Ambrose, Ziggler, Harper, Bryan. Those are 4 of my favorite guys right now. And I think it's going to be a killer match. I mean, just think about the ladder match Ziggler and Harper had back... Oh, God, what was that? Was that the TLC pay-per-view? Just stole the show. One of the best matches of last year. And you get all of these guys together in this ring, and we have the potential for a, match of the year type of situation. And I think it's going to be really good. And I think it's good for the Intercontinental title, because you've got a lot of people fighting over it, making it feel important. My hope is that either, one of the 3 baby faces I think needs to walk away with it. Either Daniel Bryan, Dean Ambrose, or Dolph Ziggler. And they did a weird thing on SmackDown this week with Bryan, and I'll get to that here in a sec, but I really hope one of those guys walks away. I think the crowd would appreciate any of them winning, because the crowd is always behind all 3 of those guys. Luke Harper could also come away with it. I don't think Bad News Barrett's going to win it, which, Bad News Barrett has been just booked like shit, which sucks, because he's actually really good. I don't think R-Truth is going to win it. He's just there for fun, and apparently he's retiring soon, so that's his whole thing there. And I don't think... did I already mention Harper? I don't think Harper's going to win, but he could. Luke Harper is very, very good. So yeah, my hope is that Daniel Bryan walks away with it, and he becomes a workhorse champion. And I love how they've started building this, where he's saying, this is the only belt I haven't won in the WWE, and let's do it. Let's have him win that, and let's have him be a Triple Crown, where he's won. Because literally he will have won, at that point, every title. U.S. title, tag titles, the pre-unified world title, pre-unified WWE title, the WWE World Heavyweight title, and then the Intercontinental title. Let's just do it. Let's let him have a clean sweep of the sucker. And that, I think, would make the crowd very happy, and it would bring some prestige back to the Intercontinental title. He could then go on to have some amazing feuds, programs with Dean Ambrose, Dolph Ziggler, Luke Harper, all of these guys. He could have some great programs with all of these guys, and it would be really good for the title. It would be really good in general for the WWE, and so I think that's the way that needs to go. But of all the matches in WrestleMania, that's one that I think has the most potential, and that's one I'm looking forward to the most, and going to really enjoy more than any other. All right, so now let's get on to wrestling this week and what has gone on. I'm not doing a full recap of everything, because partially I've forgotten. And just kind of my random thoughts on the different shows this week. Started out with last Monday's Raw, which was pretty much all about Randy Orton and Seth Rollins. There was the moment with John Cena finally losing his shit and beating the utter piss out of Rusev and making him pass out in the STF. But the STF, I'm sorry, is one of the worst looking submission holds I've ever seen. 1, how is it supposed to knock you out? 2, what is it supposed to hurt? I mean, at least this time he had it pulled into where it looked like it might hurt, but I don't get it. And he had Rusev in the hold. Lana's begging him to let it go, and then finally she concedes, says, "Okay, fine, you've got your U.S. title match at WrestleMania," and so he lets go of the hold. But what really everything was about this week was Randy Orton, and so Randy Orton cuts his promo and calls basically the Authority a bunch of idiots, and lets them know exactly his plan to Seth Rollins, what he wants to do, and how he wants to get Seth to trust him, and then he's going to turn his back on him. And then he does the whole, "Hey, I'm just kidding, guys, blah, blah, blah." And then at the end of the night, there is a handicap match, Rollins and Orton against Roman Reigns. And Orton does just that. Right as Reigns is going, or not Reigns, right as Rollins is going for a tag, Orton jumps off the apron, steps back. Rollins has this panicked look on his face, like, "Oh my God, he just did screw me." Loses the match, and then Randy Orton tears him apart. And it was really well done. The crowd was kind of into it. This is what should have been done as soon as Randy Orton got back from being injured or from wherever he was. But it was a hell of a beatdown. Ended with an RKO through the announce table, and Randy Orton then laying out a challenge to Seth Rollins for a match at WrestleMania. That should be a very good match. Both of these guys are extremely talented, and I think it will be a good match. It'll be a lot of fun. It could have been built up better. Really, the build up to this WrestleMania has sucked balls all around. But it's going to be a good match. Both of these guys can go. The other real thing that happened in Raw was we had a message from Sting to Triple H, and it was a promo, and it was a vignette basically. And there's been a lot of controversy over whether or not Sting actually recorded it. So whoever's voice it was distorted and everything. And I don't know if it was Sting. It didn't sound like Sting to me. Why they didn't let Sting, record it himself, or if he did, why they fucked with the way it sounded, why he didn't just come out and cut this promo, I don't know. But what the promo boiled down to is he came out, he said, "Look, I've worked for tyrants, and that's what you are. You've held people down, and I've waited 14 years to come and kick your ass." And it was perfect. I thought it was the perfect way to do this. He said, I'm against injustice, and you are injustice. And it was, the words were great. The way it was executed was horrible. But I think that was a promo that made sense, and that was kind of the way I was thinking that they should take the whole Sting Triple H thing. So that was pretty much Raw. There was other stuff that went on. There was some other stuff with the building up of the IC title match. And if I'm not mistaken, Daniel Bryan beat Bad News Barrett in a match. But again, I've slept since I last watched Raw. That was a week ago. And so yeah, I'm actually amazed I'm remembering as much as I have without having taken notes. SmackDown this last week was all about the Intercontinental ladder match. And we started off with the Daniel Bryan promo, and talks about how, and this was a great Daniel Bryan promo, he talked about how he is entering the ladder match, how the only title he's never won is the Intercontinental title, and how he looks at all of his favorite wrestlers and all of his favorite Intercontinental champions, and how they were the workhorse, and how everything that they were doing was far more entertaining than anything going on in the world title picture. So it was a nice little jab at the world title scenario, him being kept out of that, him being kept out of the main event, while still saying, look, let's look at some of the greats: Bret Hart, Randy Macho Man Savage, Ricky Steamboat, Shawn Michaels. All these guys had some of their best stuff. Stone Cold Steve Austin as Intercontinental champions, and that's the way that he's going to go. And I think, as I mentioned in a previous episode, really the Intercontinental Championship is a good place for Bryan, because for whatever dumbass reason, the WWE doesn't see Bryan as a main eventer. Well, fine. Let's put him in the workhorse title. Let's have him be that champion. Let's have him hold that for a long time, go against everybody, and just be the best goddamn wrestler in the company, which is what he is. And make that the stepping stone for folks, and they have to work their way up through him. And I think that would be awesome. It would be a good use of him. It would be a great way to help younger guys coming up to get experience and get rubs from this amazingly talented athlete. And the IC title used to be the workhorse title. It was held in extremely high regard. Hell, Bret Hart and the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith headlined SummerSlam of 92 with an Intercontinental title match in in England. I think it was in Wembley Stadium, and that card had a world heavyweight title match between Randy Macho Man Savage and the Ultimate Warrior, and the Intercontinental title match headlined that show. It main evented that show. So it is very possible for the IC title to be important again, and it needs to be treated with importance. And the fact they did merge the two world titles to give us one defined title for the organization, and you can have then two mid-card titles, an upper mid-card title and a mid-card or lower mid-card title, is great. And I think, you've got the U.S. title, and it can play the part that the television title played back in the day in the NWA and WCW, and the Intercontinental title will take back its prominence. And I think with a guy like Daniel Bryan, they could really make that happen. Now, you could also do that with either a Dean Ambrose or a Dolph Ziggler, but I think at first you need to give it to Bryan. Let him have that belt, and let him have a really good run. First, maybe a feud with a set of matches with Bad News Barrett, seeing as he was former champion, and then eventually him having a set of matches with, say, Dean Ambrose and him going over. The only thing I wonder is at the end of SmackDown, there was a 6-man tag match, which was a really good 6-man tag match. It was Ziggler, Ambrose, and Bryan against Harper, Barrett, and Goldust. And the babyfaces went over, but at the end, Michael Cole got in the ring to do an interview with them, and Dean Ambrose called Daniel Bryan a turd, and Dolph Ziggler agreed. And I don't know what the WWE is trying to do here. If they're trying to force Bryan into a heel turn, if they are, I don't know what the point of this is. I really don't. And I mean, these three guys don't have to be friends. They don't have to act like they're buddies, but they're all baby faces, and they can all have great matches together. So yeah, and so that was pretty much SmackDown. That was kind of WWE programming for this week. We had also Lucha Underground, which talked about a little bit ago, with that fantastic cage match. There was also an intergender match, Ivelisse against what was his name? Heli? I don't know. He was a real pretty boy. And Son of Havoc was the ref. Interestingly, I didn't know that the guy who is Son of Havoc is very close friends with Sami Zayn and Adrian Neville, and there was a great picture on the web of the three of them together at like a ball game somewhere. And it would be really cool to get Son of Havoc in NXT, because that guy is really good, and I think in a lot of ways he hasn't been used as well as he could be in Lucha Underground. And Lucha Underground has a shit ton of talent, so I'm not slighting them. It is what it is, and he's the kind of guy who could fit, I think, really well in NXT. But you could really, God, can you imagine an NXT Lucha Underground crossover? How amazing that would be. But that was that was an interesting match. There was another match that I cannot remember to save my life. Because really the cage match was what was going on. But one thing I really enjoy on that show is the commentary. Vampiro is a little, he does his says brother, not in like the Hulk Hogan kind of way, but a lot of kind of slang, almost, I don't want to say ghetto terminology, but definitely his Latino culture comes out, and it's actually really cool, because he's not this just uptight professional, and it's not annoying like Jerry Lawler's just damn near racist southernness, or JBL's redneck hickory. It's fun, and they both know what's going on, and it's a lot better to listen to than the commentary we get in Raw and SmackDown. Now, that having been said, the commentary in Raw and SmackDown has gotten better since they took Jerry Lawler off of Raw, and Raw is now JBL, Michael Cole, and Booker T. It's a much better setup. And SmackDown with Michael Cole, Jerry Lawler, and Byron Saxton is also quite good. Quite better. Let me put it that way. And I like Byron Saxton. I think he's doing a great job. But Lucha Underground this week, another, just fun episode. So that's, kind of about all I have to say about that. TNA, again, I watched a little bit of it. Didn't watch the whole thing. The match with, drawing a blank. Bobby Roode and Eric Young was pretty good. Kind of predictable. I don't really like Eric Young as a heel. And that whole feud just seems stupid and kind of a mess. The whole thing with Beatdown Clan was dumb, except for Drew Galloway's excellent promo. The match with Galloway and MVP had a fuck finish, so it was kind of bleh. And I stopped about the time we got to the Magnus Bram match, and I watched a bit of it, and it was good. Magnus and Bram are both really, really good. But my whole thing with Impact is I'm watching it, and the production value is really weird, and it looked and sounded like the production you get out of the New Japan stuff. And I don't mean that as a knock toward New Japan. It's just filmed very differently. And I don't know if that's a Destination America thing. I don't know if that's a Wembley thing. I don't know what the deal is. But there was weird echoes with the ring sound, and just everything was odd about it. And the acoustics were weird. And I know TNA is trying to redefine themselves and trying to do something different, but they're really not succeeding. So I may or may not go back and watch the rest of it. Again, I've got homework I need to be doing, so that probably won't happen. But the other thing this week was NXT, which was another just fantastic episode. There was a great tag team match with Enzo Amore and Colin Cassidy against the Lucha Dragons. And what kills me is every time the Lucha Dragons come out and Kalisto's doing his pointing in the air thing, and you've got Sin Cara doing it too, and Sin Cara just looks like he doesn't care. He's just so lackluster and is pointing his fingers and all that. But it was a pretty fun match, and it had a great ending where Cass came in off a hot tag, did a kind of, he caught, I think Kalisto did a jump and Cass caught him into basically a body slam position, flipped him around and dropped him into some kind of version of a rock bottom, and then tagged in Enzo. Enzo went to the top rope, and Cass threw him off on top of Kalisto for the pin, or it might have been Sin Cara, I can't remember which one. But Cass and Enzo are moving up. They're going to challenge Blake and Murphy soon for the tag titles. and it's going to be it's going to be good. Those two guys are fantastic, Cass and Enzo. Maybe not as much in the ring, especially Enzo's not much in the ring, but what they lack for in ring ability, they more than make up for in charisma and ability on the mic, because they are so good, and they have that crowd each and every week eating out of their hands, and it's so much fun when they do their ring entrance, the whole 9 yards. Interestingly, though, Carmella was not at the ring with them, and then later when Carmella came out for a match against Alexa Bliss, Enzo and Cass were not there. Alexa Bliss won. She has this pretty cool twisty flip thing off of the top rope that she does. I forget what her move is called, but she got the pin. It was nice seeing her not jobbing for once, because she's lost a lot, so it was nice seeing her finally get a little push. And we also had Alex Riley making his in-ring return. Riley was a guy who kind of wrestled during that era when I wasn't really paying attention, but he had a good match against CJ Parker, beat CJ Parker. Kevin Owens came out and said, basically told him, hey, I've ended your in-ring, I ended your career as a commentator. I'm going to end your in-ring career too. And so next week we're going to have a match, Alex Riley against Kevin Owens from Ohio. And so the matches that they recorded from their shows at the Arnold, whatever the hell it was, thing last week in Ohio are going to be part of next week's NXT. So that's going to be awesome. It'll be neat to see see the crowd reaction in a new town. NXT is also going to be doing a show during WrestleMania week in San Diego, I want to say it is. That should be fantastic. There's also been rumors that they have put a hold on the former ECW arena, so we could have NXT running shows there. And there's also been a lot of talk that the NXT is going to head to New York and hit the Hammerstein Ballroom, which would be amazing. So NXT is really taking over. And also apparently WWE did a poll this week asking folks, one of their email polls, who or what indie promotions they watched. And it included things like Ring of Honor, Chikara, Dragon Gate, CZW, PWG, and so it's kind of interesting seeing WWE asking those kind of questions. I'm sure it's going to have something to do with NXT. And that was pretty much it. There was some stuff I'd forgotten to mention in Raw and SmackDown having to do with the tag team title situation, but the matches were good, and that's about all I can remember. So yeah, like I said before, it's going to be a bit of a short episode this week. Now, going to end things talking about WatchMojo.com's top 10 Wrestling Controversies list. And I'm actually going to play the thing in its entirety. It's about a 15-minute long clip, but it's worth listening to. And if you haven't seen it, or if you're not familiar with WatchMojo.com, WatchMojo.com is a website, and it's also a channel on YouTube. And they have top 10 videos of all different kinds of stuff. They do superhero origin videos, supervillain origin videos. They've done plenty of top 10 wrestling videos. And this one just came out recently, and it's a pretty good list. It includes things like the pipe bomb, the CM Punk walking out on the WWE, the Montreal Screwjob, which they had listed at number 2, the steroid controversy. They even have a clip with Billy Graham saying that he personally injected Hulk Hogan with steroids. And then the number 1 controversy was the death of Chris Benoit, which was really the only thing it could be number 1, because that was a horrible thing. And it had a clip of Chris Jericho on, I think it was Larry King, saying, look, this isn't an issue about wrestling, this isn't an issue about steroids, this is an issue about a guy who had serious mental problems and head trauma and kept it bottled up, and unfortunately it exploded in this horrible violence, and which absolutely made sense. And they also had a clip of Chavo Guerrero from the Remembrance episode, the night after, that Monday after Chris Benoit died. They did a whole Raw dedicated to the memory of Chris Benoit, and the Eddie Guerrero clip that the Chavo Guerrero clip that they used was from that. They also, one of the other things that we mentioned was the death of Owen Hart, and it's pretty interesting, and it's a good, since I'm kind of running low on topics, it's a good little thing to end the show on. It's a good little listen, and so I'll play that here in just a second. But the Watch Mojo is a fun channel, and I really do suggest everyone check it out. But real quick before I do that, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, feel free to send them to me via email. You can email me at aroundtheringok@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at aroundtheringok. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/aroundtheringok. Our main homepage, aroundtheringok.wordpress.com. You'll actually have a link in this week's episode on the website to the Watch Mojo video. And what else? Oh, yeah, you can listen to us on K98talk.com, on the Spark Radio Network at sparkradionetwork.com/aroundtheringok, or one of my favorite places you can hear us, besides right here at the Around the Ring homepage, is the Shoot Wrestling Network. That's shootwrestlingnetwork.weebly.com. Head over there and listen to the great shows that they've got going on. And that is pretty much it for this week. So before we get into the Watch Mojo clip, just everyone, hope you have a great week. Stay safe out there. And as Jerry Springer always said, take care of yourselves and each other.
That indeed it is.
Trash can.
And that's what I think of the WWF Women's Championship belt.
Wrestling is fake. There, we said it. But sometimes things get a little too real. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 wrestling controversies.
Trust me, this isn't sour grapes, but the fact that Dwayne is in the main event of WrestleMania next year and I'm not makes me sick.
For this list, we've selected the most shocking and unbelievable real-life moments and controversies to take place in the world of professional wrestling.
I myself personally have injected Hulk Hogan with anabolic steroids.
Number 10, Sting versus Jeff Hardy.
He is the #1 contender for the TNA Heavyweight Championship of the world, the charismatic enigma, Jeff Hardy.
At TNA's Victory Road pay-per-view in 2011, two icons, Sting and Jeff Hardy, were set to fight. The problem? Jeff Hardy was looking at drug charges, and after disappearing for a few hours before the fight, he showed up allegedly so messed up on something he could hardly stand, let alone fight in his long-awaited match with Sting. What followed was one of the most uncomfortable moments in wrestling, as Hardy, visibly intoxicated, staggered into the ring.
What the hell is Jeff Hardy doing here?
Sting was clearly upset, but not as upset as the fans, who booed loudly as the match ended in about a minute and a half.
No, right now,
Oh, wow! Sting. Right off the bat, it's going to be a death trap.
Not playing games.
Got him! 3. Wow! God. The winner of the match, and still TNA Heavyweight Champion of the world, the Icon.
Number 9, Muhammad Hassan. Mark Kapani, otherwise known as Muhammad Hassan, was a talented wrestler who portrayed a man of Arab descent during his brief tenure in the WWE in the mid-2000s.
What's next? Because anytime anything goes wrong in this country, it's the Arabs. When a plane crashes, it's the Arabs.
At the time, fear and xenophobia following the events of 9/11 were still high, so Hassan's debut was met with heat from mainstream media.
But because of my heritage, because of my background, because of who my ancestors were, we're labeled terrorists. Terrorists! I'm a terrorist!
Things escalated exponentially when, at the SmackDown taped July 4th, 2005, Hassan knelt down to pray and let his masked henchman take on The Undertaker.
واسه همه کی هفته پیش نگاه کردیم ما رو تلویزیون شما دیدین من از زمین که رفتم بالا رفتم اون پشت.
3 days later, the London subway bombing terrorist attack made this entire storyline seem in even worse taste, and Hassan's character was ultimately scrapped. Ironically, he was actually Italian-American. Number 8. Undertaker loses at WrestleMania 30.
Undertaker, there it is! Counters with a DDT.
The only thing more prestigious in the WWE than a championship title was The Undertaker's undefeated streak at WrestleMania.
The Undertaker is here!
Having been unbeatable in 21 straight matches, nobody expected anyone to take the dead man down, let alone Brock Lesnar.
Undertaker!
After all, Undertaker was practically on the verge of retirement. Of course, most people forget the age-old wrestling mantra, you always go out on your back. And so on April 6th, 2014, The Undertaker, having suffered a real-life concussion during the match, was beaten cleanly by Brock Lesnar on the biggest stage in wrestling, making Brock the one in 21-1.
He's got it! Undertaker up on his shoulders again! Not again! Going for a triple! A third F5 to The Undertaker! Brock Lesnar into the cover! Hooks the leg! The streak is over!
Number 7. The Matt Hardy, Edge, Lita love triangle.
While I was out of action with a serious knee injury, I discovered that Amy was having an affair with Adam Copeland, better known as Edge.
In the early 2000s, Matt Hardy and Lita were dating, both on screen and in real life. However, by mid-century, again in real life, an affair between Edge and Lita began, and things got heated backstage.
I didn't really like seeing you blindside my boyfriend and attack him, but that was awfully sweet of you.
The story made its way into the ring, and Matt Hardy was fired, wrestling independently for a while before being brought back by the WWE to engage in a feud with Edge over Lita.
You sign that contract, you get your rematch with Edge and Unforgiven inside of a steel cage.
Things culminated in a brutal cage match at Unforgiven 2005, where Matt Hardy finally got his revenge. Of course, with Lita by his side, Edge beat Hardy right back in a ladder match at Raw a few weeks later, so the celebration was short-lived. Number 6. The steroid trial.
As many of you know, several years ago, the World Wrestling Federation and I came under a vicious attack by the tabloid media.
Professional wrestling and pro sports in general have always been a hotbed of steroid scandal. But things initially came to a head for the WWE in the early 90s, when Vince McMahon was indicted in federal court due to a series of allegations concerning the distribution of steroids among wrestlers.
That's why, when you see this symbol, you can be assured of drug-free sports entertainment that you and your entire family can be proud of.
The prosecutor had a star witness, Hulk Hogan. But at the last minute, the Hulkster flip-flopped, and stated that Vince had never provided him with drugs.
I myself personally have injected Hulk Hogan with anabolic steroids.
Since 1994, the WWE has been under close scrutiny concerning steroids, but unfortunately, that hasn't stopped several tragedies from occurring.
I'm the last great American hero since John Wayne died. Forget the baseball players. Forget the football players. Hulkamania is what tears Madison Square Garden and every major arena down around the country.
Number 5, the mass transit incident. At an ECW house show in 1996, Axl Rotten and New Jack were supposed to square off in a tag team match. When Axl no-showed, a massive 350-pound man going by the name of Mass Transit, claiming to be of age and to have been professionally trained as a wrestler, offered to substitute. Turns out he was only 17, and New Jack beat the living hell out of him with a toaster and crutches, before blading him in the middle of the ring and prompting paramedics to arrive. Mass Transit's family eventually tried to sue ECW unsuccessfully. Number 4, CM Punk walks out on the WWE.
I want you to digest this because before I leave in 3 weeks with your WWE Championship, I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest.
It began with CM Punk's controversial pipe bomb. Punk cut an extremely realistic promo on the microphone that blurred the lines between reality and fiction.
Oops, I'm breaking the fourth wall.
That promo, combined with one of the longest championship runs ever, turned Punk into a true superstar.
An elbow right to the chest of Ambrose.
Then, something changed. In early 2014, he packed his bags and left the WWE with no reasons given and no public address. Punk recently recorded a podcast with Colt Cabana, exposing some WWE practices he deemed unprofessional and unacceptable.
We all know I didn't like working with Ryback. I've detailed that.
Really?
Yeah, go figure. I was told I'd never have to work with him again, and then I got begged to work with him again, and then, I got hurt again.
Call us crazy, but it feels like Punk is actively trying to burn his bridges back to the WWE.
And now this is the part where everyone throws you out and tries to say something mean, but you don't have to leave. You just can't stay here. That's my bus. I'm CM Punk and you're not.
Number 3, Owen Hart's death.
Paramedics rush into the ring as pay-per-view TV cameras turn away from the show.
We are not going to put this on television.
All the TV viewers could see was the aftermath.
It was supposed to be a standard stunt, but what occurred that night in 1999 was one of the worst tragedies in the history of wrestling. At the time, Owen was playing the role of the Blue Blazer, a goofy superhero-style character. For his theatrical entrance, Hart was going to be lowered from the rafters on a harness to a safe level, at which point he'd get tangled up in the wires, release himself, and fall ungracefully into the ring. Unfortunately, something went wrong partway through his descent, and Owen came crashing down over 50 feet.
He ended up hitting his face onto the turnbuckle and did a flip and ended up landing on his back.
He died not long after. Perhaps the most controversial aspect about this tragedy was the fact that the WWE decided to continue the event that night.
One last toast to our friend, Owen Hart. We'll never forget you, Owen.
Number 2, the Montreal Screwjob.
I think I'm the best. I am the best technical wrestler in the World Wrestling Federation today, and I look forward to the challenge.
This one's full of he said, but here goes. Bret Hart, one of the most popular men in WWE at the time, was feeling underappreciated by his company and boss man Vince McMahon. So he chose to jump ship for the WCW in 1997.
So I quit.
McMahon wanted Bret to forfeit the championship before leaving, but Hart was allegedly unwilling to drop the title to one of his biggest real-life and on-screen rivals. As a result, a non-scripted ending was executed, with Shawn Michaels putting Bret Hart in his own signature submission, the Sharpshooter, and the referee calling for the bell.
You saw Bret Hart go to town. He destroyed the set. He was spitting in the air. He was writing WCW, and you knew something big was going on.
The relationship between Bret Hart and the WWE was tenuous for years because of this screwjob, but they've recently made up.
I've been screwed by the World Wrestling Federation, and I've been screwed by you.
Before we unveil our top pick, here are some honorable mentions.
This is the most horrifying thing I've ever seen in my life. Oh my God.
I really did it. I really did. I screwed your brains out.
What's that about? What's going on here?
Get him out of here! Somebody call the security guards. What is it? Did David Arquette just... What's going on here? David Arquette won the world title.
Number 1, the death of Chris Benoit.
The wrestling world in shock today. Former champion Chris Benoit found dead in his Atlanta home along with his wife and young son. Police now treating the discovery as a double murder-suicide.
Chris Benoit was one of the most technically proficient wrestlers ever. His illustrious career culminated in a feel-good championship win at WrestleMania 20. But when Chris Benoit no-showed an event in June 2007, his friends knew something was amiss. By the time police eventually entered the Benoit home, they found the wrestling star, his wife, and 7-year-old son dead from an apparent double murder-suicide at Benoit's hand. Though the motive for this tragedy died with Benoit, theories including steroid abuse and brain damage have been suggested.
This is not about steroids, Russ. This is about a man who had some severe mental, damaging, horrible issues in his head that he kept bottled up inside, and it exploded into this horrible, violent act.
Though it led to a shockwave of changes in the company's drug policies, this remains the most tragic controversy in the WWE's history.
I just want to say, Chris, you're my friend, man. I love you, and you're part of my family. I don't say that about people. I say that about you.
Do you agree with our list? Which wrestling controversy interested you the most? For more sporty top 10s published every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.
Thank you, Taker.
You've been listening to Around the Ring on the Spark Radio Network.
All you have to do is change your point of view.
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. Bam! Woo!
That sucks more than anything that I've ever sucked before.
What? It's for charity.